Hello and welcome to another brand new episode of Dingers and Stingers, the podcast that would never say they could do a sport better than a pro athlete. But did you see that Young Hui Koo kick last night? I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I might be able to kick a little bit better than that.
I'll pull
I
up
would
the
I would
the
never say
pump
that.
pass kick. I'll pull up the pump pass kick video.
I made contact with the ball, okay? I made contact with the ball. Let that be known.
We'll
Um,
get Adam Rink
uh,
on the show and see how he thinks.
yeah, bring him on. Um, uh, I'm Dallas. That's Drew. That's Matt. This is Dingers and Stingers. This is our NFL episode for this week. We are going to talk about Week 13. We're going to talk about some close division races. We are going to talk about some. Look, we've got some teams to bury already. We're going to do our in memoriam segment for this week in the NFL. Some teams have been eliminated from playoffs, so we are going to talk about why that happened and bury those teams for good. We are also going to take a swing by Fan Corner, make some predictions, and give our dingers and stingers. Packed NFL show as always today, but let's start where we always do with the winners and losers from Week 13. In case you missed it, this special Thanksgiving Week 13 where there were games seemingly all week long. So Week 13, here's how it broke down. The winners were the Packers, the Cowboys, Bengals, Bears, 49ers, Jaguars, Texans, Dolphins, Jets, Panthers, Buccaneers, Seahawks, Chargers, Bills, Broncos, and Patriots. The losers were the Lions, Chiefs, Ravens, Eagles, Browns, Titans, Colts, Saints, Falcons, Rams, Cardinals, Vikings, Raiders, Steelers, Commanders, and Giants. So that is how Week 13 broke down in case you missed it. Week 13, how do we feel about Week 13? It was kind of strange, Week 13, I think.
I didn't like it. I'll say that. I didn't like it. That's my analysis of the week. I didn't have fun.
Yeah. Um, I you might think I had fun because my team won, but it was a much more stressful experience than I wanted. And this is just a sidebar. I got eliminated from both my fantasy league playoffs, and I really in one of them it was a given. In the other one I thought I had a shot still, so I'm kind of frustrated, but just, it is what it is.
Those tiebreaker scenarios, they'll get you. They will get you. There are several of them, and they will get you. But all right, so without further ado, let's dive into some topics for this week. First up, there are some close division races all around the league. Look, no division except for the AFC East. The Patriots are up 3 games in that division because they haven't had their bye yet. They have their bye this coming week 14. But no division other than them has a clear leader yet. No division lead in the NFL is wider than 2 games, except for that AFC East that I mentioned. Some divisions have 3 teams within 2 games of each other. One division has 3 teams within no games of each other. And so we are looking at a lot of close races across the NFL. Teams that went down early with injuries, getting people back. Teams that started hot, cooling off. It's all different kind of reasons. So what I want to talk about is first to set up the discussion. Let's talk about for each conference. I want you guys to give me a team from each conference that is not currently leading their division that you think is the most likely to win their division at the season's end. So your options in the AFC are the Bills, Steelers, Bengals, Colts, Texans, and Chargers. You can throw the Ravens in if you want. Their division lead isn't technically an outright lead. They're tied for the division lead. They have the tiebreaker, though. So you can throw them in if you want. Totally on the table. Your NFC options are the Cowboys, Packers, Lions, Panthers, Seahawks, and 49ers. Same rules apply here. I think the couple of those are tied with the division leaders, so you can feel free to throw the division leaders in if you want. Those are the options. Those are the teams that are closest, still in the races, and could still win their divisions. So that's where I want you guys to start. For each conference, give me one team that you think is most likely to jump up to the lead. And we'll start with Matt.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to start with the NFC. Honorable mention in the NFC is for me absolutely going to be the Seahawks. I mean, to me, the Seahawks and the Rams kind of remind me of last year's Lions Vikings, where the Seahawks may end up having the fifth seed, the Rams may end up having the fifth seed, and still have the second best record in the NFC potentially. Um, honorable mention Seahawks, but I'm gonna go with the team that currently has a win and a tiebreaker over their division leader, and I'm gonna say the Cowboys. Um, they've been playing a lot better. They made some trades on their defense. They brought in Quinnen Williams, Logan Wilson, and they've kind of shored up a bit of what their issues were. Their secondary still leaves quite a bit to be desired, especially with how much they're getting paid. But that offense is crazy, man. Like that offense is they're cooking with gas, and they were able to, mount that huge comeback against the Eagles and end up taking it from them, which is huge, And what's his name? Jim Harbaugh always says division games are basically worth two. So, they basically got two wins there, beating Philadelphia. So I'm gonna go with the Cowboys for the NFC as the most likely to be able to overtake their division. Um, I mean, man, there's a few of these that are so close, but yeah, Cowboys. And then for the AFC, I'm gonna go with the Chargers. Drew might not want to hear this, but as much as I'm like the Chargers are banged up, no Rashawn Slater, no Joe Alt, definitely brings down the quality of the team. That division record plays. And, I just quoted him, Jim Harbaugh, he says, these division games count for two. Are the Chargers currently 4-0 or 5-0 in division right now? Are they 4-0, I believe? I know that they started off the season 3-0,
Yeah,
and then
4-0.
they just played the Raiders. So they're 4-0, right, in division. And at the end of the day, the Broncos obviously look great. They win games is actually how I should phrase that. They win their games. Um, but if it comes down to a close race at the end of the season, like the Chargers are going to have the conference record to overtake that. Um, barring if they win their next two, they in theory would have swept every team in the AFC West. So I'll go with the Chargers. I love Justin Herbert too, so I'll always bet on him.
Yeah, I for the AFC, I'll just pick up where you left off. I'm inclined to agree, and it's not necessarily that my belief is so heavy in the Chargers. It's just the Broncos, and we'll talk about them more in fan corner. They're winning games, but they're not like we're winning games. It's not emphatic. And they have the Raiders this week, and then it's Packers, Jaguars, Chiefs, Chargers to end the year. Chiefs are still going to be fighting for their lives. That's an Arrowhead. Uh, the last game of the season is in Denver against the Chargers, so we have that in our favor. But I think that last game on January 4th could be the decider. And I mean, we've seen Justin Herbert do it before, so I think that's absolutely a fair take. Um, I'm going to go in a different direction here, and I'm going to say, maybe this is a little wacky, but I'm going to say the Houston Texans, because to start the year, we were very low on the Colts, we were pretty low on the Jaguars, we were relatively high on the Texans compared to those teams. And that's just not how the season has gone at all. And, shout out the Colts and shout out the Jaguars for playing so well to this point. I don't think it's going to be easy, but the Texans are suddenly playing better football. They've won four straight games. Um, they're only a game behind both those teams. Uh, let's check out their schedule. I'm assuming they've got some matchups against those teams remaining. They've got the Colts the last week of the season. So they're already done playing the Jaguars. But again, another, week 18 matchup that could end up being very impactful. I think the Texans are truly the best team in this division, and that defense is so good. Um, I just believe in them the most out of those three. So we'll see what happens down the stretch, but that's my AFC pick. And then the NFC, like you said, it's so close in so many of these divisions. It's almost like, well, anyone could do it. But I'm going to go with the Packers, who are really only a half game behind the Bears right now because they have a tie, 8-3-1 versus 9-3. They play each other this weekend, and then they play each other in 2 weeks. So those are obviously going to be big matchups. I love again how the Bears have been playing. I think they're definitely a playoff team, and you should love their direction as a Bears fan. But I think the Packers with their plus 68 differential in versus the Bears plus 6, like I think the Packers might just be the better team overall. That that tie against the Cowboys we thought was so ugly, while the Cowboys have been playing a lot better. Um, I think the Packers could be the team to beat in this division, and in a few weeks they might be just looking at an inside track to winning the division.
Yeah, good options all. Good options all. These teams are close to each other for a reason, right? There are a lot of teams that are playing, very well this year and playing, maybe not, you know, there's a lot of teams that are playing very believable football, believe inable football. And I think the Texans, when you think about the full season scope, and not just, where we saw them at the beginning of the year. I think they're one that I would have my eye on too, because that defense is it's unbelievable. They and now that CJ Stroud is back, the offense can maybe start clicking again. Who knows what they're capable of when he's playing up to his potential and healthy. Um, and so, yeah, I think a lot of these options were, there's a case for almost everybody. I think, and sometimes the case has to do with how strong they're playing, and sometimes the case has to do with maybe some of these division leaders who are kind of building up leads throughout the beginning part of the year coming back down to earth, right? Bucks, you think about them, think about the Colts, those guys, Steelers as well, were leading their division. They're currently tied with the Ravens record wise, but the Ravens are on top now. If it ended today, they would win. So a lot of these teams are coming back down to earth, and the rest are surging. So who knows what the top seeding will look like, but it may end up just looking a lot like the last few years, and but it may also end up looking completely different. Who knows? Um, and so it'll be an exciting, run up to the last few games of the season here, to watch who separates and who gains ground. Um, Okay, so moving on from those, division races to talk about teams that are contending, that are in the race, very much in the hunt, to talking about some teams that are for sure 100% no longer in the hunt. It is time for our In Memoriam segment. This is the already edition of In Memoriam, which is what I said when I saw how many teams were already eliminated. There are several teams that have been eliminated from playoff contention as of week 13, and we are going to talk about all of them. And so let us get started here. And, if you watch our baseball episodes, you know how this goes. We give a cause of death, and we give the fan base of this team something to look forward to. And so that is how we do this in Memoriam segment. So first team we're going to say goodbye to is the Arizona Cardinals, and Matt has the info on the Cardinals.
Yeah, so the Cardinals' cause of death, in my opinion, has to be their head coach, Jonathan Gannon, right? He's been there for 3 or 4 years now at this point. I believe they have one playoff appearance, and it was an embarrassing loss to the Rams in the wild card round. Um, and I look at this Cardinals roster, and I feel like there's too much like premier talent. Like I feel like and this might not be, his doing, but I feel like they've drafted really well over the past few years. I mean, they've got a franchise tackle. This was the regime, I believe, or no, they took over for Kyler, but they got Kyler. But Marvin Harrison Jr., they got Will Johnson, they have that Walter Nolan on the D line, and they've got these pieces, Trey McBride, and they've got these pieces where it's like this should be a better team than they are. And I think you see that if you look and watch any of their games. And a lot of their losses this year really are, they've had so many moments where they've kind of like collapsed in the fourth quarter and like fumbled the game away. And, famously, there was the Amari DeMarcado, like 70-yard run where he drops the ball in the end zone. It's happened like 3 times this year, which is insane. But like it's stuff like that where when a team continuously goes into games and actually has a lead going into the fourth quarter and collapses, to me that actually shows it's an issue with coaching, right? There's an issue with being able to finish games. Because clearly the talent's good enough that they can compete. Clearly the talent is good enough that they can get those leads against these teams. Um, and they've played competitively against a number of teams this year. Just they don't seem to have what it takes to just get the win. And so I think it comes back to coaching. I think that ultimately is the cause of death. And we've seen, how many coaches as of late where they come in and have the immediate success in their first year with the new team. And granted, they're not all brand new coaches and rookie coaches, but we have two clear examples right now. Both first seed teams are technically first year coaches with their teams. And so I do think typically I like to preach patience and I like to preach these things. And, I'll actually be coming up talking about that in a little bit. But I think Coach Gannon has had enough of a leash in Arizona. But if they have something to look forward to, I believe it is that they have a lot of these premier positions with talent. I believe Marvin Harrison is very good. I believe that they have a bookend left tackle in Paris Johnson. And, they've got defensive players that are solid. They now have the opportunity to move away from Kyler Murray this offseason and potentially start with a new kind of salary cap window where they have all this great young talent and can potentially draft or bring in another quarterback on a more affordable deal, as they can hopefully move away from the Kyler drama. Kind of an addition by subtraction situation.
Yeah, the Cardinals, they are, uh, just one of those teams that's in a real mess, and I think you summarized it pretty well. So goodbye to the Arizona Cardinals. Have fun the rest of the year, and maybe you can sneak in a couple more wins against a certain opponent for me, if you would.
The
Still a
Niners.
couple games on the schedule there. All right, next team eliminated. New Orleans Saints. You could say this team was eliminated before the season started. Drew has more details about all of that, though. So let's say goodbye to the Saints.
Yeah, bye Saints. Cause of death. I mean, everything about them kind of they're just, they've been in cap hell and things over the years and just not a very good roster because of that. But I think the biggest thing is just the lack of quarterback play and the lack of offense. Just they were the third worst team in terms of points per game, seventh worst in terms of yards per game. So like that's just not a recipe for success. The franchise players, Alvin Kamara, Cameron Jordan, these guys are getting older. Did I get? There's Cameron Jordan, there's Jordan Cameron. I get them. There's they both exist. But yeah, one of them's on the Saints, and he's getting up there. Still, playing decently, but it's just that's not. It's just not a roster. It's not a team that you really saw even like a best case scenario them being a playoff team. And so this is more worst case scenario, unfortunately. But if we're gonna look for something to look forward to, well, first of all, the defense wasn't that bad. It was middle of the pack, which is not thrilling. That's not like what you're aiming for. But for a team that's 2-10, it gives you a little something to be hopeful about. Kellen Moore, this was his first year as a head coach. This is where I'm gonna, be like Matt and preach patience a little bit. Like he steps in. He was kind of a late hire. I mean, relative to how it usually goes, because he had to go through the whole Super Bowl, um, you know, delay basically. And give him a year, give him a couple years, give him a couple drafts to really kind of enact his system and his ideas and his culture that he wants there, and let's see what happens. Unfortunately, I don't see much in terms of like the players on the roster for you to be thrilled about. But there is, there are assets here, there are ways to improve this team, and the only place to go is up. So, look forward to going up at some point.
Yeah, look forward to going up at some point. I think that's the best way to put it. I watched the Saints over a full game because they played the Seahawks this year. It was early in the year, but they were really not good in that game. And to think that they have lost players that were good in that game, or maybe decent in that game since then, and have still been trying to play and trying to win, is crazy to me. They made some trades, sold off some players already. Expect that to continue where it can. But Kellen Moore, this was the year for him to audition people and see who he wants on his team. That with a new coach, I always say like you're auditioning to be on this team in 2 years, um, because that's the team after a couple drafts, a couple free agent classes. That's the team that's going to try to compete with a new coach. And so everyone was auditioning this year. Who makes the team? Who doesn't? Is up in the air right now, but we'll see. So goodbye to the New Orleans Saints. We hardly knew you, but let's go now to a team that played on Monday Night Football this week and will almost certainly, I think, play on national TV again before the season is over, even though they are eliminated from playoff contention, and that is the New York Giants. So Matt has the New York Giants. Let us say goodbye.
Yeah, so this is the what I was about to say, right? It's the polar opposite of the situation with the Cardinals. I think the cause of death has to be the impatience here. Um, and there I think Joe Shane, the GM, has been an issue for this team. Famously, he looked the part of a fool in Hard Knocks, letting Saquon walk for what amounted to being like a $2 million a year difference. And we saw the year that Saquon had last year. And not to say Saquon makes this Giants team like a superstar team, just you don't like letting players go for that when you were also paying Daniel Jones. Um, so much money to be a pretty bad quarterback. Um, so yeah, I think Joe Shane and just the system of impatience as Brian Dable finally got to draft his quarterback. Like, and that's a huge part for coaches, and specifically offensive coaches, is a lot of times their tenures and their careers are tied to the quarterbacks they draft. It's not as common that it's, guys that come in and it's the quarterbacks they inherit, that end up, being so successful. And he finally gets to draft his guy. He drafts Jackson Dart, and Jackson Dart looked pretty good, right? Like he's looked good this season. He's shown flashes of really exciting play. He was getting some comps to like young Josh Allen stuff. Who developed Josh Allen? It was Brian Dable. And so you start to see kind of this like path forward, and you start to see like, okay, maybe they've got something here. And then Malik Neighbors gets hurt, and then Cam Skadbu gets hurt, and then they start losing games, and then their defense, their pass rush is amazing, but they still are giving up a lot of yards through the air, and then they fire Brian Dable, and it's a tale as old as time. This is something that plagues the other New York team, and it's this constant turnover and the inability to just let a player and a coach develop together. It's so detrimental, especially it's so like historically, if you look at quarterbacks, rookie quarterbacks who have had their coach or an offensive coordinator fired in their first year, it is detrimental to their future. Like their development is so stunted. And so I hate the move from the Giants, and Mike Kafka takes over, and they didn't look good. Like it's not like they came out and had some like, spunk in their step. Like they came out and just looks like a 2-10 team, and the Patriots kind of stomped on them. And that is what it is. But what they have to look forward to is they have a pretty stacked skill position group. It looks, if they come back healthy, you're talking about a really good combo of, you'll have Malik Neighbors Wan'Dale Robinson, and Darius Slayton at the receiver position, all super good. You'll have Cam Scadaboo, who, when he was playing, looked awesome. And you have Jackson Dart, and then that pass rush is still elite. So there's a lot to look forward to as a Giants fan. I just think, the impatience shown by Joe Shane following off seasons of incompetence that have been publicly filmed and broadcasted has to be a pretty tough pill to swallow.
Yeah, they do have a lot going for them from a player perspective, player personnel perspective. We haven't yet seen, Abdul Carter reach his potential in the league yet, I don't think. He's had kind of a underwhelming rookie year, but I think he'll be better than this. You count that in as well. And I think, you have some things to look forward to if you're a Giants fan, as long as you can not get the coach wrong. You may not have to get the coach right, but you can't screw it up, because this is a window that you have that could be pretty interesting. And so you cannot screw up the hire, which hopefully they don't. All right. So speaking of screwing up a coaching hire, the next team that we want to talk about is the Las Vegas Raiders. They have also been eliminated from playoff contention. I'm eating my crow. I bought in. I was a believer. It did not work out at all. In fact, it could not have gone worse. So Drew has the Raiders, and we'll say goodbye to the Raiders.
It could have gone worse. They actually beat the Patriots this year, so good on them. Now, yeah, the cause of death: bad offensive line, real regression from Geno Smith compared to the last couple years, and then I'm not gonna say Pete Carroll was like a bad hire or anything, but his, attitude of getting the troops going and rah rah and that attitude in general just wasn't good enough to help this roster uh, win games this year. Me and Matt were kind of team like, yeah, but the Raiders are like they don't really have like good players. Like at the
Yeah,
beginning of the year, it could be
yeah,
exciting. Geno Smith is a solid quarterback, a trustworthy at least kind of quarterback. Pete Carroll obviously has all his resume behind him. And Ashton Genty being the first running back taken, and there was excitement behind this team, and I just never really bought into it, and this is why. It just um, it's a team that goes through cycles of every few years trying to be the team that makes the most noise in the offseason, whether that was giving John Gruden a 10-year contract back in the day, whether that's moving your team to a whole nother city, whether that's what was his name? They hired the guy from NFL Network to like make their yeah, Mike
yeah,
Mayock.
yeah,
You know, Josh McDaniels, they gave him another shot at being a head coach. Like, just a lot of real ballsy decisions, and so many of them just have not panned out at all. And in some ways I respect it, in other ways I just relish in it. But what do you have to look forward to? Well, you know, you get another high draft pick. Well, that's what we're going to say about all these teams, really. But um, the Chiefs have gotten worse than what we're used to. Uh, they almost beat the Broncos, who are leading the division. Ashton Genty, I'm not giving up on him, but in general, man, like they're just not a well-run football team, and that's the concerning thing, at its core. You can go through bad seasons, you can go through rebuilds even, as long as you trust the people making the calls. And I just don't know if you're a Raiders fan if you can trust whoever's making these calls at this point. So um, I don't know. We'll see what direction they head. Does Pete Carroll get another year? I don't like. He probably should, but like he might not. I don't know. I don't know what they're thinking over there. But whatever happens to the Raiders, I just trust that they won't be better than mid. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's what you have to look forward to. But that's what I'm saying.
yeah, yeah, man. The Pete Carroll thing, it really, it was only going to work if all the other stuff also, worked a little, like not even worked a little. It had to work a lot. Gino had to be as good as he's been. Chip Kelly had to be against everything we know about him, ready for to coach in the NFL again. Um, and Ashton Genty had to be the guy. He had to be rookie of the year front runner all year long. And then the Pete Carroll thing works because you don't need him to do much other than keep everybody in good spirits. Um, and it's very easy to keep people in good spirits when you're winning, not as easy when you are losing to the degree that they are. Um, I saw in one of his press conferences, he's being same old Pete, like he's being the same Pete he was with Seattle. And I saw in one of his press conferences, he got asked about some question about his players' execution. Um, and he did that old joke where he said, "Sounds like a good idea to me." And it was like that joke is funny to reporters when you are, 9-3. It is not funny when you have two wins or however many wins they have. Like it is, come on, Pete. Like you can't be same old guy, but he doesn't have another gear at this age. He just doesn't have that other gear anymore. And so should he get another year? I don't know. Will he? Maybe. We'll see what they want to do with players. Like if they just want to push through one more bad year and then get better players. Who knows? But yeah, goodbye for now to the Las Vegas Raiders. You know, uh, big bummer. All right, last team we're going to talk about, the team with the least wins, I believe, of all these teams, and that is the Tennessee Titans. So let us say goodbye to the Titans, and Matt has the details on that.
Yeah, I mean, they naturally got the first pick last year. It was not a trade up for the first pick, meaning last year they were the worst team, and they followed it up by being the worst team. Um, Sometimes that's what happens, man. When you are the worst team, sometimes it is more than a year away for you to not be bad. And they've had some injuries this year. Calvin Ridley's been out for an extended period of time. They've had some issues with the offensive line. And at the end of the day, the cause of death for the Titans, though, is still just the mere fact that they're not a good enough roster. Like the talent isn't there. And I also think that the coaching staff there has a lot of questions to answer this offseason. We'll see who they end up going with after, they fire Bill Callahan. Um, but it's there's not a lot to be excited about. I mean, their most exciting receivers this year have been like I think two fifth round guys or like a fifth and a sixth round guy in Elik Aya Manor or whatever out of Stanford and Shamir Adike. Um, the run game looks okay. I mean, it's nothing to write home about. The big thing I will say for the Titans to look forward to going forward is and don't look at the analytics. Watch Cam Ward play these games, and you'll see the flashes of brilliance are there. And we saw who he was in college when he had an offensive line. And I saw it firsthand when the Rams played the Titans this year, and he was making crossbody throws 30 yards downfield for touchdowns. And it's like, okay, he's got this that like special it factor. It's just a matter of can they put consistent football around him, right? It's so that way he's not always having to feel like he has to do that. And I think if they can do that, they've got a franchise quarterback, or at least a franchise potential quarterback on their hands. I don't think that they need to look for another quarterback this offseason. I really do think it's just build a roster around him. But yeah, there's not much to say about them, man. Like tough spot to be in. It sucks when you are pretty clearly like a bottom one or two roster in terms of talent, but that's where they're at. One thing I'll say is they're in a better situation than the Saints, though, in terms of cap space and picks. So more power to them.
Yeah, I think I saw Cam Ward play against Seattle a couple weeks ago, and he looked really nice. The Seattle defense is pretty stingy, especially when it comes to like rushing defense. Like whether it's running backs or quarterbacks. They're pretty stingy this year when it comes to that. I still think that they haven't given up a rushing touchdown this year. I think that's still true. And so, but Cam Ward, when he played against him, he was, you know, running up and down the field against Seattle. So he's definitely got the mobility, and he's got the arm too. He was really, throwing it all over the field too. So I was impressed by what I saw. I agree. I think they've got the quarterback figured out. So use those picks to get other players, and put them around him if you can. All right, so that is the end of our in memoriam segment for this week. With baseball, it all comes kind of back to back. With football, it might be another week or so before we do another one of these, but we'll see how it goes. Anytime a team's eliminated, we'll shout them out. But speaking of some teams that are not eliminated, let us go to Fan Corner, where all of our teams are the opposite of eliminated here. Some really high playoff odds for all our teams. And so let us indulge in a little bit of fan corner for the show and start with the Broncos in Denver. Eventful week.
Yeah. Sunday Night Football. Played the Commanders, which, preseason, you might have circled that. Jaden Daniels versus Bo Nix. Two exciting up-and-coming teams. It's not exactly how the season has turned out. For the Commanders, they had to start Marcus Mariota.
Also a
And
number 2 pick.
and he did his darndest to win this game. It went to overtime. If it wasn't for just an outstanding play by Nick Bonito, the Commanders win this game. So Broncos did win. That's the good news. They are 10-2. That's part of the good news as well. I mean, that we had 10 wins all last year, so definitely, room, like, we've improved a lot. We're winning a bunch of one-score games, which in some ways is nice. In some ways, it's incredibly scary. So I think this was one of the most concerning games of the season to this point because Marcus Mariota had not looked great in his games so far, backing up Jaden Daniels since Jaden Daniels went out. And he looked really, really good in this game against the Broncos defense, which is supposed to be one of the best in football. So that was the concerning part. But at the same time, Bo Nix, back-to-back games where he's looked a lot better overall. He did have a bad interception in this game, but especially in the first half, like, the ball was moving well. He was hitting his receivers. In overtime, it was, we got the ball first and it was just a beautiful, like, it felt like it was like 4 plays and we were down into the end zone. So, like, offense has looked better overall, but yeah, this was a concerning game for the defense. If anything, I think it could have given other teams a script on how to beat the Broncos. And the script is run the ball a lot and get the ball out quickly when you are throwing. Because Mariota, when he was under pressure, that's when the bad plays came out. But they just game planned where he was getting the ball out under 2 seconds every time, and there was just no chance for there to be pressure. And they drove the ball. And if it wasn't for a couple drops, it could have been even worse from their receivers. And so, yeah, it's we just did all these in memoriams. Am I going to sit here and complain about my 10-2 team? Not really. But at the same time, it's like, okay, what does this look like as the schedule really tightens up? We have the Raiders this week, and then it's like Packers, Chiefs, Chargers, Jaguars. Like, these are all playoff teams that we're playing down the stretch. And, I'm going to assume we're going to make the playoffs, but, who do we get in the playoffs? Like, is it going to be just another quick first round exit? I hope not. But that is the concern at this point. But at the end of the day, I'm watching my team win football games. They've won 9 in a row, and that's awesome. So we'll take it.
9 in a row is awesome. That's crazy. That is crazy. The Sunday Night Football experience, you're all hopped up at, we're on the West Coast. So, like, you're all hopped up at 9 p.m. and you're like, what am I supposed to do with all this kinetic energy that I have? Like, I should I go run a mile or something? Like, I don't know what could help. But
Yeah.
I definitely, experienced that a lot. So, okay, let's pop over to Los Angeles and talk about the Rams. What went down in Ramsland this week?
Yeah, the Rams lost a tough game. We lost a game to Carolina in the rain in Carolina. Um, but the thing I've had to keep telling myself is like it happens. Like there's a reason there's one team that's gone undefeated, right? Like the best teams lose games, and sometimes to teams you really don't think you should. And yet the Panthers are not even like some terrible team. Like they are a team that's put a couple teams on upset notice. And, they are currently sitting with a winning record. And, in my doom scrolling post game, I did come across a few interesting things about the Rams like situation and like that just kind of reiterated like again, it happens. The Rams are still a very good team. One of which being our strength of schedule versus the rest of the NFC playoff picture. The Rams' strength of schedule, as it stands right now, is a 551 strength of schedule. That's typically just, by wins and losses. The Bears is a 376. They're the seed above us. They're the one seed. Philly is third with a 531. The Bucks have a 548, but then after that, the rest of the teams in here have pretty bad. I mean, Chicago's was bad, but Seattle at 428, Green Bay at 414, San Francisco at 462. So like we're in this position and we played really good teams. And then the second one I want to treat off because this one, in my opinion, was even more kind of like staggering, is each team's record against the current playoff teams following this weekend. Um, in the NFC, the Bears are 1-1 against current playoff teams. The Eagles 3-2, the Seahawks 1-3, the Packers 0-1. Right? We go to the AFC and you can see, okay, the Broncos they're 1-2 against current playoff teams. The Jaguars 2-2, the Ravens 1-2. The Rams are 6-2, and the next closest team has 2 wins against playoff teams. Like the Rams have 4 more wins against playoff teams than any other team right now. We have by far the biggest strength of schedule. And so the fact that we dropped, a game to the Panthers, it sucks. And I was really excited to be in first seed for one week. Um, and at the end of the day, like we're still a really good team, man. Like you caught us in the rain. That is like Sean McVay's bane of his existence is we don't play well when it's rainy or snowy. Like we are California sunshine and golden light. Like that's what we're about. It's why we play in a dome, even in California. Like it's just one of those things. We don't want to get wet. Like you get wet, the Rams aren't going to play as good. It's just it's a simple equation. So props to the Panthers, man. Like shout out Panthers. They played a great game. Their defense looks legit. I mean, back-to-back weeks turning over, like I think they had 4 turnovers against the 49ers, 3 against the Rams. They broke up the streak right after Stafford set the all-time record for most touchdowns before an interception. Um, 28 touchdowns between interceptions, which is pretty crazy to think about. But shout out Panthers, but Rams will be all right. It's just you never like to lose at the end of the day. So it is what it is. We've got a lot of football ahead of us. So we'll be back.
Yeah, yeah, one of those that's, for someone who like, I follow the NFL, we all know pretty closely. All of our friends do too. It's like, it's one we can kind of laugh at because it's not that it's not because it's funny, but because it's like, oh yeah, like haha, the Rams lost to the Panthers, whatever. Like that doesn't mean anything. Like it's funny because it doesn't mean anything is why it's funny. And so yeah,
Yeah. And
it doesn't.
There's such a trend of like great teams losing random games to these like nobody teams. I mean, in 2022 the Chiefs lost to the 4-12-1 Colts. Like it sometimes it just happens and I have a whole list of them. I'm not going to read another list for you guys, but it's just it happens. Like at the end of the day, football has so much parity involved in it, and this year especially, it just feels like even the teams at the top are not that far apart from the teams in the middle. the 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 strength of the team gap is not wide this year, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. Let's end the fan corner with some talk of the Seattle Seahawks. Look, you know, despite what Seahawk fans who can't pull themselves out of their phones will tell you, this was a dominant win against the Vikings. To both phases of, well, there are three phases, but offense and defense can both dominate games, and it can be a dominant win. It doesn't have to be both of them doing it at the same time. If one of them does it and you win, then you dominated and you won. Mike McDonald put belt to booty on Max Brosmer. They turned him over 4 times. They turned the Vikings over as a team 5 times. They were not ready for what Mike McDonald had in the bag for them, and it showed from the first drive. Like if they would get into plus territory, they would turn it over. And these interceptions that Brosmer threw, they were not unlucky. 3 of them were right to the defender, and the other one was a really good play by Josh Jobe to break up the pass, and then Ernest Jones is like right where the ball is. So um, it's one of those things where like sometimes I will go to certain lengths, shall we say, to watch a Seahawks game because I want to watch it in full. Against the Titans and against the Vikings, I didn't bother because I know how that's going to go. And I was right in both cases. Maybe not the dominant win against the Titans like we wanted, but they still won. So not learning much new about Seattle still. But there's only one more game against what I would call a favorable opponent left on the schedule before the last bits of the season begin. We have the Falcons coming up in Week 14. That is what I would call the last tune-up game of the year. You will be able to fix your problems, experiment with things that you might want to try, because this is one where you can kind of mess around a little bit and probably still win. And so try some things, work some things out, because from there it's Colts, Rams, Panthers, then Niners. And the Panthers defense, like we talked about, is really, really good. And Sam Darnold has played against some really good defenses this year. Texans, Rams. The third one was the Vikings this week, of course. And the dude can't stop turning the ball over against good defenses who can get pressure on him. And so if the Panthers defense can put the pressure on and, get him into, situations where he's under duress, I don't know that I really trust that he'll be able to hold on to the football. And I'm not even just talking about interceptions. I'm talking about fumbles. Like he can't hold on to the football when he gets hit. And so that's something they're going to have to fix if they can. It's something that, I hate to be that fan that's going 1 week saying take the sack and 1 week saying throw the ball away. But like there's a middle where you can take the sack and hold on to the ball. So like do that one. Do that one when you can. And throw it away when you can get it out of bounds. But like, figure something out because the O-line's not going to get better. They're only getting worse. The pass protection is kind of falling apart a little bit. I won't overreact to the performance against a Brian Flores coach D-line because they're monsters and they blitz half the game. So I won't overreact to what they put on tape this Sunday. But since Jalen Sindell, the starting center, got hurt, there has been a steady decline in pass protection quality. And it's not going to get better until he comes back. So if he comes back at all. So got to figure that out, Sam. You got to hold on to the ball when you get hit because you're going to get hit a lot in the coming weeks. Last thing I'll say, JSN, he got pretty much shut out for the first time this year. That couldn't have felt great for him. I'm bummed for him. I'm glad we won the game. But this is the game that we're going to look back on at the end of the year when he doesn't break the record and say it was because of that game when he only had like four yards. And so that's what we're going to look back on. But bummer for him, but good to get a win. All right, so let us make some predictions for the coming week. We are moving on now to our locked in segment where we lock some predictions in. So Drew's got a prediction for us If you made a prediction last week, please fill it in here. If you did not, don't bother, and just make your pick for this week.
Yeah, no prediction for me last week. I was baseball only. Unless Matt predicted something on my behalf, like I don't know, Chris Collinsworth eats an entire turkey on TV. I don't know. Um, this week, I we got kind of an intriguing AFC South matchup. The Jaguars and the Colts play each other, and they are tied right now on top of that division. And my prediction is that the Jaguars beat the Colts so decidedly that we're like, dang, were the Colts ever good? Like,
Mm.
did we buy into these Colts really? Um, Colts are they on a L2 right now? A two in a row streak. I know it was Steelers and Chiefs, so not like terrible teams, but like those are a couple of 500 teams you just lost to. Whatever you want to think about them, they're 500. Um, Jaguars have been playing good football. They have won three in a row, so they're trending in opposite directions. Um, it's just, yeah, it's a gut thing. Like all my predictions, that's a gut thing. We'll see what happens, but that's what I'm saying goes down.
I like it. I like it. This week I went definitely a little more transactional here. So if you've got sports betting in your area and you're into this, write this down. This week, I believe the Broncos are going to win their game against the Raiders. I believe George Pickens, Jahmyr Gibbs, Puka Nacua, and A.D. Mitchell will each have 75 yards of their respective, positional yardage, so receiving or rushing. And I think Stafford's going to have three touchdowns. I think all of those things are going to be true come next week. So yeah, I've kind of gone off the rails a bit with some of my other predictions, being like, oh, this guy is going to have 500 yards passing. So I'll switch it up. I'll go a different type of absurd. Um,
I'm sorry, did Jermaine Curse just make that catch in the background?
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So for those that are not paying attention, this is actually the Seattle game live. If you guys want to tune in, I'll keep talking. But yeah, so my pick right now is those. I think that those guys are going to complete those statistical challenges. We'll get it done. I was even so confident in my prediction this week. I placed a small wager on underdog for it, so I'll let you guys know if I get money.
There it is. Um, shout out to Matt Stafford.
First and
He's
goal.
shout out to a couple weeks ago. We didn't get to talk about it because we didn't do a show together, but shout out to a couple weeks ago when we picked Matt Stafford and Baker Mayfield to have like 800 yards passing or something, and Baker Mayfield got hurt in like the first quarter. That was a bummer for Baker, but
Literally
I did
fell
laugh a
over
little.
on just
Uh,
hurt his shoulder.
yeah, it was a bummer for Baker and I, but I did laugh a little because I was like, well, there it goes. So I was like, well, Matt Stafford's gonna have to carry this one. All right, well, those are our predictions for the week. So let us go to our titular segment here, Dingers and Stingers. If you are unfamiliar, for the uninitiated, this is where we give one good thing and one bad thing from each of you from the world of sports. So broadening the scope here beyond the NFL if you wish. So let us start with the bad, and let's start with Drew. Give us your stinger for the week.
Yeah, I'm gonna hop over to the baseball world for a second for my stinger, and this is a tentative stinger, but I believe it because it's been the trend lately, and it's just that we've been getting some reports early in the off season, even after the Sonny Gray trade, that the Red Sox, maybe are not going to stretch the payroll to the extent that other teams do, like the Dodgers, the Mets, the Yankees, the Blue Jays. Two of those teams are in our division, so it's just a very frustrating trend that we've been seeing. The Red Sox that I grew up loving were big time spenders and were always engaged in any big free agent and things like that. Things like that. Obviously, there's a lot of offseason left, a lot of guys who are not signed yet, but at this point, like I don't love hearing that when there's, in my opinion, a lot to do. So Sorry, is this like an important play or something? What is this?
Yeah.
This is
Second and
actually
goal.
it's actually pretty cruel that Matt's doing this right now. I'm not really sure, why he's doing this to Dallas. It's too bad. But that's my stinger for the week. It's Red Sox related.
Yeah. Red Sox going, I want to see them try it. I want to see them try it with this team. It'd be nice to see. But what I'll do in this moment before we move to Matt's stinger is shout out the book The Franchise, a history of the Legion of Boom era Seahawks by Michael Shandugar. It's a great book that talks about everything that you're seeing in front of you here in a very interesting way. He did some good reporting, good interviews, and he got some good perspectives. So it was really nice to read as someone who was there live for all of that. But okay, Matt, give us your stinger for the week. I'm excited for your stinger because I was thinking this a lot. I think about this subject a lot this weekend. Yes, I was.
Yeah. Yeah. So anybody who knows me and knows my fanship when it comes to football knows I look down on college football as kind of like a sport a decent amount. I just think it's typically like a pretty bad product. Um, but this week something happened that like actually like angered me to the point of being like, what the actual hell's happening for college football? Like it just feels like unnecessarily cruel to the players. Um, this week, Lane Kiffin made the announcement that he will be leaving Ole Miss to take the job at LSU. They have just handed him the bag. Like that might be the highest paid coach in sports at the moment. Um, I wouldn't be shocked if, like, on a per year average, he was. Um, but what makes me bummed is he made a very stark comment following his interview with LSU, where LSU basically told him, like, no, we need an answer from you now because we're not going to lose out on the transfer portal. And we need to know if it's you that's going to be here or if it's going to be somebody else. But our players and our recruiting, like we need to know. And that is a valid stance for a university to have. But at the same time, the college football playoffs haven't even started. And Lane Kiffin has taken this Ole Miss team and they've got this kind of chip on their shoulder underdog story. Their quarterback was like a D2 or D3 zero-star guy, Chandler Chindris, or I probably butchered that name, but it's something like that. Trinidad Chindris. It's something, he's kind of got a cool name. But they're a college football, like they're bound for college football playoffs. And Lane Kiffin told his staff, he's retaining a decent amount of the offensive staff from Ole Miss, and he told them straight up, if you are not on the plane tonight to Louisiana, you will not have a spot on my staff. He left the school. Ole Miss students surrounded the airport, booing him as he got on his private jet with his offensive staff, and they have entirely abandoned this Ole Miss team that is playoff bound. And it's just this situation that pisses me off because I'm like, this is just a logistical and administrative error on college football's part. Like
Yeah.
the transfer portal does not need to be open yet, and yet you are taking away possibility and opportunity for these players that have, you know, given everything of themselves. Not every player is going to be a superstar and be in the draft and be like, this might be it. Like, there's going to be a whole class of seniors at Ole Miss right now. This is the last time they will play football ever again. And their head coach just left them the week before they're supposed to go to playoffs. Like, it's something that irks me so bad and I hate it so much. And we already know, I mean, Lane Kiffin, he's not going to break any rules, but LSU currently has the largest NIL package that they will be giving to him. It's estimated that he's going to have about 25 million a year purely to give to athletes, in terms of, gifting, recruiting, etc. But a $25 million budget, no school even comes close to that. I mean, we're seeing Colorado's budget report just came out and they're in the negative by like tens of millions of dollars with their whole situation. So it's one of these things where we are going to see, I think, a really large shift in the college football atmosphere where I think a lot of the worst case scenarios people brought up about NIL are going to come true for a time. And it sucks because we stand in this middle ground. This podcast famously is pro player. We believe that players earn their value and they have earned their value. And these colleges, these programs, these teams and the sports, they make money off of these kids, and the kids deserve to be paid. And at the same time, what's going to happen when the teams that just have the largest secret, endowments behind their name are able to just flush all this money into sports and take it over, and it turns into the same thing that we see with high school and all the issues with high school sports and recruiting, where it's like, hey, there's one team that's been impossible to beat for you know 23 years, or you see like the De La Salle, they won 130 games in a row or whatever it was. Like, it's just becomes an issue when recruiting becomes so normalized to this extent where you're able to just give and give and give. There's not going to be a fair playing ground. And granted, there's some schools that will benefit from this. Vanderbilt just flipped the number one quarterback recruit in the country. That he was committed to Georgia since like February. He just committed to Vanderbilt because he's from Nashville. He wanted to stay home, and now they can offer him all this money because Vanderbilt did well. They've made money. There's pros and cons to it, but it's just this whole situation with Lane Kiffin feels like it's really going to sour any positives that have come out of this NIL era for college football. And I feel bad for Ole Miss, man. I feel bad for the kids there. Um, I don't know if it was a joke or something, but he responded to it and was like, seemed like he was like for it. They were talking about potentially Eli Manning stepping in and coaching them in the playoffs. He has talked about being down to coach there. That's his alma mater. Could Coach Eli carry him through? Who's to say? But it's just a shitty look. It's a shitty feeling. Like they have truly just been abandoned, and that sucks. Like that sucks.
It should be illegal to even interview a coach of another team while that season is still going on. They should have some kind of timeline for it that makes way more sense than whatever this is. And I gotta say, Lane Kiffin has worked this whole whatever last 10, 15 years. When was he the Raiders coach? It was forever ago now, but
Yeah, a
Hmm.
long time ago.
to kind of get his image back into a good place because he had totally tanked his image multiple times, and this does nothing to help it. I think he's just always
No,
going to be on my
it's
shit list.
it just is such a slimy look, and you can't blame a guy for chasing a paycheck, and at the same time, it's like, why is it set up for the transfer portal to open before the season's even ended? Like, what the hell is even that? Like, the it the I feel like I'm literally like I can't get my words out. There's not a single sport where the off season starts before the season ends. That's not a real thing, and only in college is that a real thing. And it's just like, damn, dude, like I can't imagine what it would feel like to work my ass off, like bust my ass off for a year to get to college football playoffs, and then my coach leaves the week before. I can't fathom what that would feel like.
It would really
So
stink, and I'm
that's a
sure it really
stinger, and
stinks.
that's a stinger.
Yeah, it would really stink, and I'm sure it really stinks for these guys at Ole Miss, for sure. But and yeah, Lane Kiffin just like, man, can't seem to do anything right, and it's probably his fault by now. And so like when this many things happen, it's probably kind of on you a little bit. All right, so let's end with the good though, and let's go with dingers for the week, and let's go back to Drew for your dinger for this week.
Yeah, well, I'm famously a big LSU guy, and so we got our coach. I'm feeling good. No, I'm I'm kidding. Um, no, my dinger for this week, I'm gonna keep it simple. I really relished in watching the Chiefs lose on Thanksgiving Day. Had kind of a quieter Thanksgiving this year than normal. Not quite so many people where I was at. But I did have the football game on, and I was like the only one there who like, really follows football. And so I was kind of getting giddy, but I was like, these people don't understand exactly why I would be happy about a team that I'm
Yeah.
not a fan of just like losing. But it did give me great joy. And we talked about the Chiefs a few weeks ago, and it was like they had 7 more games. They kind of had to go 5-2 to even have a chance. And even then, it wasn't like a guarantee. And so far, they've gone 1-1. So now they have to go 4-1. And they got the Texans this week. They still have the Broncos on their schedule. They still have another Chargers game. Yes, I think. I don't know. But uh, they've got their work cut out for them. And look, any Chiefs fan who's like, well, you don't want to see us in the playoffs because you're scared you'll lose. Well, yeah. Like, yeah, I don't want the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl again. And so if they miss the playoffs, they do not get to win the Super Bowl again. And that is enough for me. That'll just be thrilling. So keep hoping for that.
Yes, we'll keep a close eye on when and if we get to, talk about the Chiefs in our podcast, maybe in a certain segment we might not mention. But we'll see, because yeah, they lost that game for real, and it was great to see. All right, Matt, give us your dinger for this week, if you would please, and we'll end.
Yeah. My dinger for the week is a bit in contrast to something, Drew briefly mentioned earlier, but I clinched playoffs in our fantasy league that we're all a part of. And it feels good. I
Facts.
had a really, really bad start to the year. I drafted a little riskier than usual. I drafted, guys like Rashid Rice early. Um, but it's all worked out. It's all paid off. I'm back in playoffs. Dallas is right there with me.
But I'm going to
I
hire
believe
you to manage my team and abandon your team right now since you've clinched.
Yeah, yeah,
I'll do
there
it
you
for
go.
$25 million. Yeah, you
Uh,
can get our, what is it, $25 buy-in league for $25 million.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean that's the sports news I love this week.
yeah, man, you're right. I'm right there with you. We have the same
Padres have
record.
signed a premier like 4 minor leaguers, so maybe that's my big sports news.
Yeah, that works too. Yeah, man, I'm right there with you. Same record. We clinched playoffs the same week. You're on a 4-game win streak. I'm on a 3-game win streak. You have 300 more points on the season than me, and that is sometimes how fantasy football shakes out. So I look forward to making the playoffs along with you, my friend. All right, so that will do it
Holy
though for
crap,
this.
Dallas, you have 300 points less.
Yes, I do. I wasn't. I was looking right at it when I said that. Yeah, that's not going to stop either. You're going to score a lot this week, and I'm not probably. So, all right.
Oh,
But that will do it for this week's NFL show for Dingers and Stingers. Thank you, as always, for listening. Thank you for watching. You can follow us here on YouTube. Let us know in the comments who you think the best, which second place team has the best chance to win the division, or in some cases, third place team. And let us know what you think. Make sure you share us around. We'd love to, grow the fan base a little. If you are a audio only person and you like to listen only, you can listen to us on Spotify. You can find us there. We're Dingers and Stingers podcast over there. Follow us on Instagram at Dingers and Stingers. All the good things. Push all the good buttons for us. We'd love for you to do that. And until next week, we will see you then. Thank you. Goodbye.